Being a single mom and doing it all by yourself is brutal. Learn the brain and energy tools to get back to your center and overcome your challenges. Welcome. This is a new episode of Single and Doing It All to help you keep your sanity while you're raising your kids and being really able to go back to your center. And are you the kind of mom that wakes up in the middle of the night terrified about some thoughts or ideas that you have about your kids not being safe, fears? If this is you, this show is for you, because today you are going to learn how to put things back in perspectives and how to use those fears to your advantage to heal as a catalyst for healing. If that's the first time you join the show, I am happy that you're here. If you're listening on audio, you can go on iTunes and put a review or a rating. I would love that. And now let's jump into our material. So today, there are really two scenarios when it comes to fear about your kids. And I really wanted to talk about each one because each one of them can wake you up in the middle of the night. And when you are in the middle of the night thinking about those things, that's the worst time because, as you know, everything seems bigger and more dramatic and darker, and you react with even more intensity. And the thing is, because you vibrate at a certain frequency with this kind of thoughts, you're going to attract even more thoughts like it. And you're going to scare yourself even more. And soon enough, you won't even be able to go back to sleep. That happens. So that's why I really want to give you an approach so you can stop that when you catch yourself in the middle of the night or going, when you can't sleep and the things go in cycle or in circle in your mind, that too. What are the two case scenarios that we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the scenario one when you are afraid for your kids because you project something on them. You project either your model of the world. For example, my back hurts so much today, so you're going to see me fidgeting and moving a lot. You think things like, and it happened to me before I came to peace with it. My kids are not going to go to college, and what if they don't go to college? What's going to happen? They're going to, work at McDonald's for the rest of their lives, or they're going to end up in the street. Really, those crazy ideas that you accept for truth. And you see the scenarios based on mostly what society has imposed to us. The second projection is let's say teenagers are lazy. That's a fact. They don't like doing stuff. They like being on their bed or being in their room. Not all of them, but some. And that's a normal thing. And you start thinking, oh my God, my kid is lazy. That means, and then you go in the worst case scenario that they're not going to get up to go to work every day, that they're going to be in the street, that they're going to starve, or they're going to lose their jobs, or they're going to have problems because they won't really put the maximum effort. And you go on and on and on. And that means one thing. As I've said before on that show, anything you judge in the outside world, anything you point the finger to. As we know, when you point one finger out, there are three fingers coming back at you. That means that it's time to look at you, time to look at yourself. And those traits or those qualities that you can't accept in your kids are in fact some qualities and traits that you can't accept in yourself. And sometimes it seems really crazy because you're initial reaction is going to be not at all, because I am not lazy, and I would never let myself be lazy. But if you can see something in life, if you can see something outside of you, that means you have it inside of you. And we all have all in us. The thing is, we may not have been allowed to express it or to embrace it when we were kids, because our parents, like we do with our kids, can't stand it because they have those fears and those projections. And it's from a very good intention, but it's not beneficial to anybody. We need to start looking at ourselves when we do these kind of things, because we don't protect our kids. We don't help them in any way. So I don't know why I still have the welcome to the show going at the bottom of the screen. I removed it, but today is the internet crazy day. So I'm not going to worry about it, and we're going to continue. So when you project like that, we're going to see we have a way to intervene and stop that pattern. The second case scenario that we're going to talk about today, and I apologize, I really have allergies strongly. So the second case scenario is the kind of fear that is not even rational. And I'm looking at my notes because I made some notes today. It's a fear that you carried from your past. And sometimes it can be your far away past. And we're going to talk about that in the second part of the episode. So let's go now to what you can do, because it's very nice to talk about the fear, to put the scenario down. But if there is nothing you can do about it, that's not fun. Well, what you can do in the scenario, case scenario 1, when you go and you have an idea like that, or they're not going to go to college, or my kids are lazy, the first thing you need to do is to assess the truth of what you're thinking. Is it a thought, or is it a fact? Because if it's a thought, then you need to approach it in a completely different way. If it's a fact, maybe there are action steps that you can take to change the situation. Let's take our example number 1. If your kids don't go to college, they won't succeed in life. Is it a fact? Is it true 100% of the time? So you investigate and you ask yourself, in the world, are there people who don't go to college who still are successful? And the obvious answer is yes. Look at Tony Robbins. And are they successful? Of course. So then you know that it's a thought and not a fact. That's where you can use a method. And if you've listened to my show, I don't know when I talked about it several times. I have an acronym for the intervention method that I'm going to describe now. And the acronym is ADD. And I called it like this on purpose, because it's time to be ADD with your thoughts. It's time to shift to another thought. It's not beneficial for you to continue thinking like this. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve your peace of mind. It doesn't serve your kids, because they can feel what we believe about them. They can feel the way we feel about them. They can feel if we believe in them, etc. So the first letter, A, stands for acknowledge. Acknowledge that you are thinking a thought that doesn't serve anybody. And acknowledge that it is a thought, not a fact. Once you've done that, ask yourself, and we stated here already, we don't have to ask ourselves because we already did it, but is it a thought that is going in the direction that's supporting what I want? And the obvious answer here is no. So then it's time to go to the next step, the first D. The first D stands for discard. Discard that thought. Just let it go. It is not a thought that serves you. You don't have to hang on to a thought. Nobody told us growing up that a thought is not you. You don't have to hang on to it. And you can let it go the same way that you can let go of, when you ski, there is a bar, and I don't know how it's called in English, but in French, it's called a tire-fesse because fesse is derrière, and it's your buttocks, and it pulls because you put your buttocks, but you don't really sit on it, because if you sit on it, you're going to have a very bad surprise. You're going to fall in the snow. So you just barely sit on it without putting your weight on, and you hold to the bar, otherwise you fall. So in the same way, you hold to the thought. You can just let it go. Another analogy for that is if you are in a train and you don't like where it goes, why would you stay in that train? You can jump and take another train. Same thing with your thoughts. Lose the habit of having of holding on to thoughts. That's not a good thing, unless it's a thought that serves you, and then you want to cultivate that. So the second D is for discard. Just discard that thought. And the third D is for define. Decide and define, or define and decide. Define comes first. What kind of thought would serve you better in that case? So in the case of my kid is lazy and that's not okay, what kind of thought could you pick instead of that? First, that's already a hint that you need to work on yourself and on accepting your lazy part, but the part of yourself that is lazy, because lazy has a healthy and an unhealthy side. The healthy one is resting. I was talking earlier on my personal page. I did a live where I talked about the stupid series that I watch on Netflix and how I binge sometimes. So in the past, I would have qualified that of being lazy. And because I picked lazy, that's not random. Don't think it's random. It's because it was one of the qualities that I could absolutely not accept in myself. And still, sometimes I still need to watch it. So I found myself lazy when I was doing that because it was not productive, until I realized that I loved doing that. It was really pleasurable, and it was relaxing me from the stress of my week, because I do that once a week. Once a week, I allow myself to sit in front of the TV for 2 or 3 hours and watch, I don't know how many episodes. That's a pleasure. That used to be a guilty one. It's not guilty anymore, because I realized how much benefits I got from that. So as I said, I relaxed. And I literally love observing the dysfunctional behavioral patterns of the characters. Because, as you know, I coach people. So it's like having a client in front of you and just assessing what's going on. And that too is a reflection of me. What do I like in the characters? What do I hate? It tells me something about me. And sometimes I'm so glad that I'm like, whew, I'm done with that pattern that I see in that character. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, this one I still have to work on. So that's the same thing with your kids. What do you need to heal? What can't you accept about you that you see in them, and you point the finger and you are hard on them for that? Does it make sense? If you're watching here and it resonates with you, just put a yes or a no. If it doesn't, if you have questions, you can also put questions here. Or if you have a specific question with a specific situation, you can also put it here. So that's the process that I recommend in that case. ADD. Acknowledge, discard, define what you think instead. So let's go back to our lazy. You can decide to see that your kids are your teachers and that you're learning from them, and that being lazy, relaxing to a certain point is good, and that they instinctively know when to be lazy. Of course, you cannot let them do that all day long, but the truth is they don't. When they're really motivated to do something, they do it. And if we're talking about chores in the house, they're not really motivated, and we can understand why. So define another thought, like the one I just said, and then decide that when you're going to point the finger at them for that specific quality, you're going to catch yourself and you're going to remember, oh, they instinctively know what's good for them, and I need to learn from that. And you'll see it's going to change your perspective. So that was the first case scenario. What kind of first case scenario do you see around you? Maybe not you, but some of your friends, in your family. You don't have to give names. It doesn't have to be you, because maybe it's too hard to accept for you, but start seeing it, start becoming aware, and you'll see it's going to become easier. And that will take the fear away of, oh my God, if they are like that, that means that they are not going to succeed. That means that they won't be able to get up. That means that, etc., etc., etc. All those gloom and doom scenarios that we run in our head. Now let's go to our second case scenario. The one where you wake up in the middle of the night, and I think this one is even more challenging to work with, frankly. The one where you wake up in the middle of the night, or sometimes it's not even in the middle of the night. Let me give you one of mine that I used to have. So it's a fear that came from long ago. And I was reacting in ways, my fear, compared to what was really going on. Let's say my daughter was out with some friends. My fear was way disproportionate compared to the fact that she was out and that maybe she didn't pick up my call, but I knew where she was. And I used to have I was so anxious. I had so much anxiety about my kids dying. And every time they would step out of the house, it was, I wouldn't say an obsession, but it was definitely there, definitely scaring me, definitely affecting the way that I related to them asking for to go out, definitely ruining our life, really impacting negatively. So I started really working on myself because I realized that it was not a normal reaction. There was a cause to that. So what was the source of the problem that caused such an anxiety every time my kids would go out, even when it was in the middle of the day? I couldn't find anything that I could remember. So I ended up doing a regression. And I discovered that I did a past life regression, that in a previous life, I lost a son who was killed by a chariot, not a chariot, sorry, that's the Franglish, by a carriage, in the street, in front of my eyes. And that pain was so strong in that life that it got imprinted in me. And I guess I made a conclusion in that life to be more protective with my kids, to be maybe overprotective, because that's what I used to be in this life. Once I discovered that about myself, I worked on it. There is something called rescripting the past, and we can talk about that later, because in the coaching that I've learned, we talked about past lives. We talked about discovering certain stuff about our past lives and what to do about it. We'll go into that in another show if you want to. You can put a comment here, you can put past lives, and I'll know that this is really something that you want to learn about. So once I worked with that and I changed the way and the emotions that I had attached to that, the fear in this life, in my current life, was completely diminished because I wasn't carrying the fear from my past life anymore. So that's the second case scenario of having fear for your kids. You have a fear that comes from long ago, whether you remember it or you don't, whether from this life, either from this life or a past life. And you carry that and you overreact. You are sometimes overprotective, which is an hindrance to their development, which is ruining your relationship, etc., etc. Especially when they get to be teenagers, because I don't know. I have two at home, and that's an age where they define their identity. And there is a lot of conflict when you're overprotective, because they can feel there is no reason, and that's over the top. So what do you do in a case like that? Like I said, you can do a past life regression, but I would like to share a process here, if you are willing to. And it's a process that is an internal process. It's a process that is very powerful, but very simple, like most powerful processes are. And I'm going to do it here with you very shortly, but you can replicate that anytime. So you just close your eyes in those moments and you go back to your center. Bring your attention to your heart. And in your heart, see a light. And bring that light bigger. Bring that light to fill your entire body. And even passing the limits of your body. And connect to that light. That light is who you truly are. It is connected to the divine. It is powerful. It is immensely wise. And you have access to the field of infinite intelligence because you are part of it. That light is you and you are part of it. And anytime you're afraid, you can go inside, focus on that light, and ask yourself, what is the wise thing to do? And you can also remember that the same way that you have access to that field. Now bring your kid into your mind eye. And in your child, see that light too, that light in their heart. See it bright, make it bigger. Connect with it. Connect heart to heart. And recognize that the same way that you have access to the field of infinite love and infinite intelligence, they do too. And the same way that you can tap into inner wisdom, infinite wisdom, they can too. And maybe they are tapping in it and you just are not aware of it. Maybe their way is different than yours. Maybe your need for control comes from a fear, and maybe it is time for you to let it go. Acknowledge that you're not dealing only with a kid, you're dealing with a spiritual being that is as wise as you, as magnificent as you. And that spiritual being, that light, that energy, made an agreement before they came here that they will go through certain things. And although you're here to protect your kid, there is a level of control that you don't have because it's a sacred contract. So your first duty is to love them. So send them love now. Tell them that you will accept them always and you will love them always. And by the way, they can feel that because love transcends. And even if they're not conscious that they feel it, they do. And now come back to yourself. Stay connected to that light because you can stay connected to it every day, even in your active life, even when you're about going to work or doing stuff. Take a deep breath. Thank that light in you and open your eyes. Let me know if you did that process. What was your experience? Because I did it very shortly here, but you can expand and extend. And you will, I can't tell you the number of times and the number of challenges that I came across, that I crossed with my teenagers, some very, very difficult, some where it was obvious to me that I had an addiction to control. I mean, because I had fears, and it was time for me to let go of this wanting to control everything because they were their own being. And I was here to protect, of course. I would make sure they would be safe, but I would also honor that spiritual being in them. So let me know what your experience was, and maybe try it with one of your child and see how they change, because when you do that often, they will feel. You will start perceiving them completely differently in your day-to-day life. It is something that I can guarantee if you do that often. Let me know how you reacted. Let me know if there are questions or comments, you can put them here. And again, if you know someone who would benefit from this session, this episode, share it with them, whether on iTunes, on Google Play, in audio. You can go on my website and access the audio episode and share from there. My website is singleanddoingitall.com. And you can also send me emails if you have private questions, or PM me here, send me a private message if this is not something you want to share in front of everybody. And you can suggest topics. If you struggle with some kind of specific challenge as a single mom, send me a private message and I can address that in a show. The other thing I wanted to say is that you may want to be on the email list, because last week I did a live show in my Facebook group. And if you want to be part of it, you can put the word here, I want in, and you will be sent the link. And what we did, we went deeper on the episode that I did about, I forgot what my episode was about, but it doesn't matter. We have life processes and tapping and practical exercises that we do together, and it's free. So that's a resource for you. You will know it if you will know when I go live, if you go on my email list, so from my website, or you can put a comment here. When you put the comment notify, it will also put you in a list to receive a message when I go live. So I also send messages when I go live in the group. I hope that really helps you, because I know how painful it can be to not be able to sleep or to have big fears regarding our kids. I know how it can consume us. So let me know. And from my heart to yours, from a mom to another, I hope that you can get back to more inner peace. I'll see you next week. Bye. Mwah.